Peronism, also called justicialism, is an Argentine political movement based on the ideas and legacy of Argentine ruler Juan Perón. It has been an influential movement in 20th and 21st century Argentine politics. Since 1946, Peronists won 10 out of the 13 presidential elections in which they have been allowed to run. The main Peronist party is the Justicialist Party. The policies of Peronist presidents have differed greatly, but the general ideology has been described as a vague blend of nationalism and laborism, or populism. Perón became Argentina's labor secretary after participating in the 1943 military coup and was elected president of Argentina in 1946. He introduced social programs that benefited the working class, supported labor unions and called for additional involvement of the state in the economy. In addition, he helped industrialists. Perón was hugely popular and gained even more admiration through his wife Eva, who championed for the rights of migrant workers and was beloved by the people. Eva was so beloved that in 1949 Juan Perón formed the Female Peronist Party, a new wing within his own party under her leadership. Due to rising inflation and other economic problems and alleged political repression, the military overthrew Perón in 1955. The Peronist Party was banned and it was not until 1973 that open elections were held again in which Perón was re-elected president. Perón died the next year. His widow and Vice President Isabel took over the presidency. Perón's death left an intense power vacuum and the military promptly overthrew Isabel in 1976. Following the return to democracy in 1983, Peronist candidates dominated the presidency. In 37 years of democracy, Peronists held the presidency for 24 years. Carlos Menem was elected in 1989 and served for 2 consecutive terms over 10 years. His main focus was the privatization of state-run enterprises, the adoption of free market policies and good international relations with the United States. After the De la Rúa administration collapsed, 2 interim Peronist leaders took over. Adolfo Rodríguez Sá and later Eduardo Duhalde. Left-wing Peronist Néstor Kirchner, elected in 2003, served for only 1 term, while his wife, Cristina Fernández de Kirchner, served 2, and is, since 2019, the current vice president with Alberto Fernández as president. The pillars of the Peronist ideal, known as the 3 flags, are social justice, economic independence and political sovereignty. Peronism can be described as a third-position ideology as it rejects both capitalism and communism. Peronism espouses corporatism and thus aims to mediate tensions between the classes of society, with the state responsible for negotiating compromise in conflicts between managers and workers. Peronism gained popularity in Argentina after the failure of its government to listen and recognize the needs of its middle class. As president of Argentina, Hipólito Yrigoyen did not listen to the workers' pleas for better wages and better working conditions after World War I. Yrigoyen was notorious for failing to oppose Argentina's oligarchy. According to Teresa Mead in A History of Modern Latin America, 1800 to the present, Yrigoyen failed to establish a middle-class-based political system from 1916 to 1930 mainly because his radical civic union had neither the will nor the means to effectively oppose the dominance of the oligarchy. Many in power did not work to change the way things were. However, Juan Perón, at that time a military officer, used his experiences in Europe and his admiration for certain leaders like Mussolini to create a new political atmosphere that he felt would better the lives of citizens in Argentina. Unlike Yrigoyen, Perón recognized that the industrial working class was not necessarily an impediment and could be mobilized to serve as the basis for building a corporatist state that joined the interests of labor with those of at least a large section of the national bourgeoisie to promote a nationalist agenda. However, it is a generally ill-defined ideology as different and sometimes contradictory sentiments are expressed in the name of Peronism. The legacy and thought of Perón have transcended the confines of any single political party and bled into the broader political landscape of Argentina. Therefore, Peronists are usually described as a political movement. Traditionally, the Peronist movement has drawn its strongest support from the working class and sympathetic unions, and has been characterized as proletarian in nature. From the perspective of opponents, Peronism is an authoritarian ideology. Peron was often compared to fascist dictators, accused of demagoguery, and his policies derided as populist, proclaiming himself the embodiment of nationality. Peron's government often silenced dissent by accusing opponents of being unpatriotic, especially noticeable in his second term from 1952 to 1955, where these policies were intensified as a form of con.